Dr. Kate Rogers is a respected community leader who most recently served as president and CEO of the Alamo Trust. Overseeing operations of the historic Alamo site and implementation of the $550 million Alamo Plan. She led major projects, including the opening of the Ralston Family Collections Center, and secured nearly $90 million in private funding. Previously, she held leadership roles at HEB and the Charles Butt Charitable Foundation, where she helped launch the Holdsworth Center for Public School Leadership in Austin. She holds degrees from Texas Christian University, University of Texas at Austin, and University of Southern California. Welcome, Dr. Rogers.
Good evening. I too would like to start with a few thank yous. First and foremost to the staff and the volunteers from PechaKucha. Thank you, Vicki, for this gracious invitation. To my fellow presenters, it's an honor to be among you, and to all of you who are here tonight to listen to our stories. I think that in some ways what I'm about to share may embody some of the themes that we've been discussing this evening. So, without further ado, some of you this may be how you know me. I'm that lady, the one who got ousted from her role as president and CEO of the Alamo Trust by some of our state's most powerful political leaders. But who is Kate Rogers really? And who was I before I became the Alamo lady? As mentioned, I worked for Charles Butt. I helped him establish the Holdsworth Center, thank you to my colleagues, on the shores of Lake Austin. It is a beautiful executive leadership campus for public school professionals named in honor of his mother, Mary Elizabeth Holdsworth Butt. And before that, I spent 18 years at this little grocery company you may have heard of, HEB. I worked in public affairs in Austin, then advertising, and finally as vice president of communications and culture. I also worked on the team that introduced this store format to Texas shoppers several years ago. But before all of that, I graduated from TCU, go Frogs, and returned to my hometown of Corpus Christi to help share the story of the Texas State Aquarium. The Alamo job was, for me, a full circle moment, a return to hospitality and to edutainment, a field that I both love, it's exciting and fun. And I'll be honest, when the recruiter first called me about the Alamo, I was skeptical, given all the controversy over the Alamo Master Plan. But some nudging from my husband, who's here tonight, coffee with a key board member, and a tour of the grounds changed my mind. I was intrigued, and all I could see as I walked through the gardens was possibility. I come from a family of educators, and I love to learn. I love school, and especially school supplies. That's probably why, when working for HEB in Austin, I decided to pursue my master's degree in public affairs from the LBJ School at the University of Texas. Hook 'em. Sorry, honey. And why I got inspired while working at the Holdsworth Center to pursue a doctoral degree in global education at the University of Southern California. Fight on! These experiences revealed a passion inside me for international travel, learning about other cultures, and education systems. Now, if you have ever written a dissertation, you know that after it is defended, it is seldom read. I guess that I should be honored that mine has gotten so much attention after being asked to resign over what I wrote. This is one of my research sites, Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. You might recognize it. This, along with Washington's Mount Vernon, Gettysburg, and the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. Please note that the Alamo was not among them. I was exploring the role of U.S. historic sites and museums in supporting social studies instruction in K-12 classrooms. I remain proud that because of my findings, and this beautiful person is here tonight, Alex Rivard, we were able to develop, well, he really developed robust, multi-day experiential learning opportunities for teachers at the Alamo. And for 2 years, Alex even led teachers on a 5-day excursion to Mexico City, all expenses paid, to understand the intersection of our histories. I learned a lot at the Alamo, not the least of which is that these are my ancestors. That's Maria Jesus Delgado and Pascual Buquar. She was a descendant of the Canary Island families who first settled San Antonio in 1731, and he was a Texas Ranger who served one term as mayor. To me, it felt like fate that I was there. We built a great team who finally got the Alamo Plan approved, secured the necessary funding, and things were moving forward at last. But trouble began last summer over the script for the new museum. We used the word slavery or enslaved too many times, according to some. A few months later, a social media post celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day in addition to Columbus Day drew another reprimand from Land Commissioner Don Buckingham. The Trust scriptwriter, Steve Harrigan from Texas Monthly, and the communications director at the Trust paid the ultimate price as they were forced to leave. Now, people make career transitions for many reasons, but it usually doesn't end up on the front page of the paper. I believe there's also a respectful way to separate from people, both personally and professionally. But to quote one of my favorite television personalities, Carrie Bradshaw of Sex and the City, it doesn't involve a Post-it note, nor a social media post on X. About a week after that Columbus Day post, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called me to say that someone had sent him my 2023 dissertation and he found it troubling. Within 24 hours, he called for my resignation, contacted members of the Trust board, and I was out. My critics can't actually point to anything I said or did in my job to diminish the bravery and sacrifice of the men who defended the Alamo. Supporters, on the other hand, point out the irony of being persecuted for exercising my First Amendment rights at a site that symbolizes the struggle against tyranny. This is why I've chosen to fight. I believe that living in fear of our government is deeply and profoundly un-American, and those in power should not destroy a citizen's livelihood just because they can. When it comes to freedom of expression, I hope we never surrender and never retreat. A few months ago, a quote circulating on social media attributed to the Pope said, "To be called woke in a world that sleeps through suffering is no insult." Although he never actually said this, I still appreciate the sentiment. And I, for one, would rather be woke than asleep. I have drawn my personal line in the sand, but my question tonight is, where is yours? What would you be willing to lay it all on the line for? I have two sons. They are 21 and 18, and I want them to live and raise their families in a country and a world where their voices can be heard without fear of retribution. I leave you tonight with this quote from the author of Democracy Awakening. One of the curses of history is that we cannot go back and change it. It has its own terrible inevitability. But it's never too late to change the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a duty today to be honest about our past for those who will lead us into tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for fighting the good fight. And that, what a well-deserved standing ovation,
Yeah.
truly.
That was very nice. Thank you.
Okay, so many questions, so many things. You know, as we can see, to some, the truth is threatening.
Yes.
Why?
Someone asked me, a reporter asked me what I thought they were so afraid of. And I think that Heather Cox Richardson does describe this really well, that if you have bought into the big lie, right, if you have given over to this rhetoric and you are an election denier and you believe that, to turn your back on that, you know, what does that say about you? Or that you were gullible enough to believe these things when they were untrue?
and that it's just too much for people to recognize, and that's scary. I also think they're very afraid of losing power.
But what I don't understand still is like, if Texas was confident enough, I guess, to make the decisions they did at that time, why can't Texas stand by that history? I don't understand.
Well, I think in addition to the politicians who are afraid of losing power, I think people are afraid. I've talked to them. You know, people don't want to be fired in 24 hours for something they said. Look at what happened to General Welsh at Texas A&M. And people in our public schools and in our universities, they're scared. And I think that's why I couldn't just let it go, if you will. The land commissioner accused me of not walking away gracefully, but I don't think there's anything graceful about doing opposition research on someone.
I was reading in a Texas Tribune article that apparently in a letter to the board, I guess the Alamo Trust board, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick wrote that, of course the entire story of the Alamo will be told, but the overriding emphasis will be on the 13 days of glory, as nearly 200 men gave their lives to defend liberty and freedom for Texas, and he added that he would continue to defend the Alamo today against a rewrite of history. And so, is this a mind game? Because it's like, how is telling the history, the actual events that happen, rewriting history?
This is such a complicated theme throughout American history, and what I take heart in is that we have been here before. It doesn't seem like it, and maybe it wasn't in our lifetimes, but we have, and we've come back from it. And people who are willing to use their voice, willing to speak up, willing to take a stand and say, this is what happened, and this is what we need to teach our children. I'm right now serving as a content advisor, overseeing the rewrite of the social studies TEKS for the state of Texas. Yes, they asked me to do that before I left the Alamo, and they probably regret that decision a lot, but you know, this is something that will be taught in Texas classrooms for 10 plus years, and it matters. It matters.
Yes. You've had the opportunity to be, in the words of Hamilton, in the room where it happens.
I have.
You've been in a lot of important rooms. And another line from Hamilton that I was thinking about during your talk is, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Mm-hmm. And too many times, the pen of history doesn't always end up in the right hands. And for, you know, when this facility opens next year, regardless of what happens, what can we do? We may not ever get to the rooms and places of decision-making power that you have been in, but what can we do to continue telling the truth and helping our elected officials? How do we hold them to account in this situation?
Well, number one, we need to vote. Because, you know, something's got to change, folks. And I hear from people on both sides of the aisle who are tired of this nonsense, right? We're not focused on the right things. We have many problems to solve in this country and in this state, and a lot of them don't deal with these culture war issues that we're spending so much time and energy on. I would like to say this because I have been in the room. I am writing a book about being in the room. So the other thing you could do is when my book comes out, you can all buy it and read it.
Wonderful. I want to leave you with this. So your jazz prescription is from the Mills Brothers, and the song is called Across the Alley from the Alamo. It was written by Joe Green in 1946 with whimsical lyrics that are said to have been shaped by a dream that he had. And so I really want you to listen to the lyrics, and it's about a Navajo Indian and his pinto pony. And in this story, the pair have an easygoing life until one day they cross the railroad track and are never seen again. Across the Alley from the Alamo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.